On game night, there's only one food delivery service that's a real slam dunk. Grubhub's got you covered with game time eats, late night treats, lazy lunches, family dinners, and more. It's all on Grubhub. And now Amazon Prime members get a year of Grubhub Plus for free. So you pay zero delivery fees when you order. Visit goforgrubhub.com/Amazon for details. And with the holidays right around the corner, Grubhub gift cards are the perfect gift for everyone on your list. Download the Grubhub app today. Go for Grubhub.
This holiday, Audible invites you to listen in on some of today's most creative musicians telling their stories in their own words. Origins is an Audible Originals podcast series featuring music and memories from artists like Billie Eilish, Camilo, Doja Cat, Flying Lotus, and more. Discover what shaped their creativity and get drawn into the immersive sound design that lets you feel the experiences that inspired them. Start listening to this innovative new series at audible.com/origins.
AT&T believes that if you want a smartphone, you should get the best deal on that smartphone, no matter what kind of smartphone person you are. People who reply to texts immediately. Emoji overtexters, emoji haters, custom emoji makers, app personalizers, and alphabetizers. Even those who blast music off their phone at the gym. At AT&T, we give new and existing customers our best deals on every smartphone. Save up to $1,000 on our most popular smartphones with eligible trade-in. Offers vary by device. Terms and restrictions apply. See AT&T.com or visit an AT&T store for details.
This is the Jabberjaw Podcast Network.
Straight up, Mack Weldon is more comfortable than whatever it is you're wearing right now. They are a premium men's essentials brand that believes in smart design, premium fabrics, and simple shopping. I love Mack Weldon so much. They sponsored the show a couple years ago, and I got some stuff, and I've continued to buy their stuff. I'm wearing their stuff right now, their underwear. They have amazing shorts. They have amazing sort of like joggers. I love them so much, okay? There's no reason that you should not try this out. Go to MackWeldon.com and get 20% off your first order by using the promo code WORDS, WORDS, 20% off. This stuff is the best, most comfortable, straight up, okay? Just do it right now. Words, 20% off, MackWeldon.com, okay? There you go. Now with the show. Hello, everybody. How are you doing today? I am doing okay. I hope you are tuning into this thing because you want to listen to a discussion about independent music and the people who make up this awesome thing, because that's what you're doing here on 100 Words or Less, the podcast. I always got to yell the podcast name, right? Well, thank you for downloading and putting this in your ear holes, because there are a million other things you could be doing, but you have decided to spend time this way, and I really, really appreciate that. And another person who decided to spend time with myself and you indirectly is Yvette Young from a band called Covet. Now, some of you / most of you probably have no idea who Covet is. They are such a good band, like basically sort of math rock minus the bear, Toe, This Town Needs Guns. Like, you know, if you've never heard of any of those bands, it's okay. I totally get it. You have to. I mean, most people have heard of Minus the Bear, but you really have to do deep dives in order to kind of nerd out about this like instrumental math rock stuff. But I have done that, and I've done that many times, and I've been a fan of a lot of these bands that do this. And once the Covet EP came across my desk, I was like, oh, I've heard of them before. And Triple Crown just put out this EP, super, super good. And I was like, you know what? I need to have. I want to talk to somebody in this band. And Yvette came on, and she is extremely interesting because she's got a lot of different stuff going on. But I want to talk to you about band merch, okay? If you are not ordering from rockabilia.com, you are doing it wrong. You're making some grave errors in your life, and you need to rectify that. And I'm also going to give you 15% off by using the code PCJabberjaw. Please do that. This company is awesome. They have officially licensed items. They have merch from pretty much every band you can potentially think of. I'm not even exaggerating when I say that. They have quality stuff. Shipping is fast, cheap, like just everything they do right, okay? And they've existed for, I think, 20 plus years, if I'm not mistaken. They've been around for a long, long time. And I love what they do, and I love that they support the show. And it's punk and hardcore kids that work there, okay? That's what's happening. So PC Jabberjaw will get you 15% off. Please utilize that now, okay? How am I doing? Well, you know what? I always really appreciate when you ask that. I'm talking to you, person A or person B. I'm doing okay. It's been, I just got back from vacation, and, it feels good to be on vacation, but then, you get back and you want to get into the work, and it's fun. But then, things happen in the world, and you're just like, oh my gosh, sometimes it just feels like inescapable with the horrors that are around every news cycle, which it seems to happen every 12 hours, and it's like you go to sleep and then you wake up and you're just like, oh, wow, okay, this is happening now. And sometimes I feel like I need to wake up even earlier than I already do, which is like pretty early. It's about 5:30 in the morning. And I feel like I need to wake up earlier in order to get that like sense of calm. And it just doesn't seem to happen anymore. And I'm sure that many of you feel that sort of pressure because, I don't know, I find a lot of the things that I would do to, just distract me, take my mind off things, just aren't working as well as they used to. And I say that kind of laughing, but it's true. I just find so many things from either, movies or, music and a lot of the other things that, feed my soul. They just don't, they don't maybe have the same effect. And maybe that's, a effect of growing older. But I think a lot of people are feeling this way. I mean, from just the random discussions I've had with people. And I think the only thing that really kind of gets me through it is other people and communities. And all of these things that we build and we bond over, that's just what is incredibly important to me now. The older I get, the more important that is. And fostering it, taking the time to, either talk to people or connect with people, that is the most important thing because not only are you able to, enrich yourself as far as, personal relationships are concerned, but then you're able to work off of each other and learn from one another. And I think that a lot of us live in isolated environments, and you need to do a lot of work in order to make those isolated environments not so isolating, So, yeah, just putting a lot out there. But that's what I'm feeling, and that's what I hope that you strive to do, is just create those communities, okay? Those are very, very important. Email the show, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. You can rate and review the show because that's what you're supposed to do. I haven't bugged you about that for quite some time, but please go on the Apple Podcast Store and be able to rate and review it because that's what keeps the show going. Okay. Yvette, great Discussion. She's a super sweet girl, really, really talented. And she's a social media influencer, as they say. So she has a wide audience when it comes to who's consuming her stuff on Instagram and other forms of social media, just because she's a really talented guitarist. And I found it really interesting because she's very self-aware. She's aware that, all these people are following her clearly, but, she's very much approaching this as a fun outlet as opposed to the thing that is going to, give her a living. Cause I think a lot of people maybe think that way, where it's like, if they start to get some sort of online identity, as far as an audience is concerned, sometimes they feel like, how can I make money off this? Not so much maybe in the punk and hardcore world, but definitely in the real world. And that can be corrosive. But Yvette, whether she is, just moved past it and said like, this is not my thing, or she's been able to just kind of, have fun with it. I think that's what she's done. So anyways, super interesting discussion. Here it is right now.
We have mutual friends in that band, Wander. That's from your area. Cool. Are you friends with them at all, or you just know of them?
Yeah, I used to hang out with them a lot in the East Bay. Before I even started Covet, like before I had my band, I used to kick it with those boys, Christian and Ryan, Bernard and Joe. Yeah.
Nice.
And then I guess life got kind of busy. And I'm really stoked to take them out on this mini headliner we're doing, because it's kind of like a throwback to, I think full circle.
Yeah.
Cool.
No, for sure. Yeah. Because I tripped across those guys and then became friendly with Christian primarily, and then just knew that you guys had a relationship and stuff. So I was aware of you from that perspective. But the thing that I always have kind of been interested in regards to, stylistically, the sort of music that, you and Wander plays, that, whatever, math rock, post rock, whatever you want to call it. But the community that kind of springs up around bands of your nature is so extremely devoted and passionate, where it's like people find, bands like, Covet and Wander or whatever, and are just so like, oh my God, I love this band so much. Like, it inspires a reaction in ways that I think is not necessarily indicative in other, music scenes. Like, yes, of course, there are passionate reactions to music in general, but have you kind of noticed that sort of, I guess, feverish passion that people have about bands once they do discover them?
Yeah, I think there's multiple reasons why that occurs. I mean, I don't know anything, but from what I've observed, at least, I know that being a consumer of this sort of music myself, back in college, I was a huge nerd about it. Like, I found this sound that I really liked. It was like, really like post-rock, math rock stuff. What I like about post-rock is I come from a classical background, and I feel like there's a lot of dynamics and emotion behind it, and it like kind of it sets a mood for me. And I really related to that when I was in college, because, it would be good for painting and drawing. So in class, I would listen to that sort of music to kind of like bring my mind somewhere. And also it's just really great, an emotional outlet, I guess. I felt like music without words was really important to me, because sometimes lyrics would kind of detract from, I guess, a song for me. Like, not that I don't like lyrics, but sometimes, like, let's say if there was like a misogynist line, it would kind of like make me not like the song as much. Or whereas I think with like instrumental music, you can it's like abstract art. Like, it doesn't give you too much information, and you can project however you feel, whatever images you see onto the song, and it makes it like even more relatable and like empathetic as a piece of art. And I think for a lot of people that applies to instrumental music. Also, I was a huge nerd about it, and it was kind of hard for me to find some like math rock stuff back then. I think it's really blown up a bit. It's still very niche, and but I noticed it's like more popular now. Instrumental music is like experiencing a bit of like a resurgence. I think it was so exciting when you found a band of that specific genre. I would spend entire nights procrastinating, just like looking up new bands, and then I found one, I got like really excited. So I think that's partially the reason, just because it's so niche, and it's kind of like a cool esoteric thing that everyone can like bond over, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I guess also the music itself it just attracts, like, I mean this in an endearing way. It kind of attracts like eccentric, nerdy people, because like who like the average person doesn't really like compound time signatures and stuff. It doesn't really like speak to them. But like, I feel like some music nerd people, they'll be like, oh, that's so sick, like they modulated to this key or like
right.
whatever. So it's kind of like a cool community of people who appreciate that detail and appreciate like kind of like treats for musicians, like in music. And I think that's what brings one together.
Yeah, no, those are all very astute observations, because I mean, I myself align myself within the context of the, nerdy type of like, once you find out about one band via a blog or whatever, and you're like, oh, I've never heard this band before. And then, you just feel like you trip on this, weird community that spills up around that band, and you're like, oh wow, like, you know, they've got like 9 million streams on Spotify or whatever. I never heard of them, you know, but like once you find out about it, it's like, oh wow, like there is something. I mean, I know that you've mentioned this in other interviews, but like Hammock is a prime example where, like, you know, most people have no clue about that band or in any capacity, but then once you dive into them, you just become obsessed, and you're just like, oh my gosh, like anything that they've touched, it's beautiful, and I want to listen to it. But they're they're not as popular, obviously, as bands like, you know, Psyche Roast or Explosions in the Sky, and like there's no real rhyme or reason for it. It's just like, oh yeah, it happens.
Yeah, definitely. It's like basically, it's just this like, we're a bunch of nerds who just want to like share our passion for music, and it's like, I think this community is really cool because I think it's pretty inclusive, and it has all kinds of people. And yeah, it's kind of like different from just like mainstream or like radio pop stuff, in that it's like music for musicians.
Yeah, totally. And even also where I think the different entry points you can have to it, where it's like, you know, you can be, you know, a hardcore punk kid, which is what I personally align myself to, and I can still I can still like it and appreciate it, even though I have not a musical talent bone in my body as far as like the actual musicianship. It's like I can still appreciate it for what it is. And then a person like yourself, who obviously comes from a, you know, very large musical background, could be like, oh my gosh, like you're nerding out, like you said, about time signatures and stuff. And it's there's even though it is difficult music to get into, there's multiple entry points.
Yeah, and like it's such a wide genre too, like just instrumental music. You can get a band like, you know, Don Caballero or something, and then, you know, they're kind of grungy, and then you can get like a more refined sounding band like TTNG or Hammock. You know, like it's just such a diverse array of sounds, and the unifying factors, I suppose, are well, for math rock, it's like, you know, weird time signatures and like cool grooves. Certain tones are associated with it. And then I think post-rock attracts a lot of gear nerds, because post-rock tones are just so beautiful. And there's so many different types of reverbs and delays and like modulation out there. And like, I think, I don't know, when I listen to that kind of music, I kind of shift gears into appreciation for like tone. And like, I get curious, like how they achieve certain soundscapes and stuff.
Totally. No,
yeah.
It's super cool. It's super cool. Yeah. I appreciate you letting me nerd out about that. Cause yeah, I think I do. I just, you know, I think it's such an interesting thing. And I don't think most people kind of are able to identify why these passionate communities exist around something that, you know, is, like you said, so not only personal, but people imbue so much into these bands because it is a blank canvas as far as like, you know, just the feeling it creates. And like you said, there's no distraction as far as lyrics are concerned. So,
yeah, definitely. Nerd out.
Yeah.
By all means.
Yeah. That's what we're here for, right?
Oh yeah.
But kind of switching the focus on you as a person, you know, there, in looking you up as far as like, you know, interviews and doing my quote unquote research, I'm using air quotes on here because it's not like I'm a journalist or anything, but the, you know, there, you know, you're not shy about sharing, you know, a lot of your life. So there are certain things I'm just going to kind of place into context as far as like, you know, I know you were, you know, born and raised in San Jose. And then if I'm correct, you were first generation born here in the States, right?
Correct.
Cool. And do you have any brothers or sisters or no?
No, I'm an only child.
That's what I thought. I knew I had a feel. I'm an only child as well, so we kind of sniff each other out. Where I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure she's got no brothers and sisters.
Yeah, I've always wanted a brother or something.
Right. So when did you have that yearning for like you know, a brother or a playmate or whatever you were viewing it as?
I think I just wanted someone. I don't know. I feel like I just wanted maybe a dude in my family that I could like play sports with when I was little, because I used to really like basketball.
Right.
Yeah, I guess also I feel like having a brother would be cool, because then I could have advice about like the dudes, guys and stuff. What guys are like. I don't know.
No, it's funny. I imagine the notion of a sister asking, you know, their brother, older or younger, like advice on guys, like, guys generically speaking, like are pretty, dumb when it comes to, either emotional intelligence or anything like that. And so I just find it funny. I could see you being like, 16 years old and, your brother's like 19 and you're like, so I'm having this really, nuanced problem about a boy or whatever. And your brother's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like, okay, so my family always raised me like a boy. Like, I was brought up, because my mom, I don't know, they're very traditional in Chinese. So they're like, oh man, like, we wish you were a boy. Like,
right.
Basically, when I was younger, like, they'd give me like I became a very sensitive person just because of my family dynamic. But I think they were trying to make me into like a tough girl. I was a tomboy when I was little. I was like very overweight, and like I played a lot of sports, and I kind of was into like boy stuff. All my friends were guys. I'm pretty sure none of them realized I was actually a girl. I had them fooled for a while. And then I guess I went to college, and I kind of just became more effeminate, and like I had more female friends. But yeah, I think I wanted a brother just so I could like
pal around.
Yeah,
no.
Bro out,
Right. That's funny. And there's something I've always observed about Northern California as well. Like I live in Southern California, but I've traveled around the country and definitely up to Northern California many times. I presume that the hella rule, as far as like people from Southern California do not say hella, but everybody in Northern California says hella. Do you ascribe to that?
Yeah. I think I started saying it ironically. Like a lot of things in my vocabulary currently, and then it just kind of stuck. Like I say like swag and stuff, but I used to say it totally ironically, and now it just flips out. I'm like, oh, what have I become? Like, like yeah, I think I say it occasionally.
Yeah. Okay. And I've also tell me your thoughts on this. I've really tried to kind of find the demarcation line in California as far as like, okay, is it Bakersfield and North says hella? Like, I've really tried, like I've put probably way too much thought into this, but do you have kind of an opinion on where that exists?
I'm not informed enough. I think I've only really been to Oakland, like just general Bay, like East Bay, and then like San Jose. I'd say San Jose does it a lot. But I've also heard it a lot everywhere. And some people deny that it's even a thing, I suppose. So, yeah. I don't know. I think I'm not informed enough to make this decision.
Okay. Well, no, I appreciate that. Definitely just collect more data. And I would like to circle back with you at some point because it's, just. Oh, yeah. It's like people in Vegas say it too. And it's like, oh, okay. I guess it's branched out there, but still it's just impenetrable in Southern California. People just don't say it. So anyways, that's that. So yeah, collect some more data. We'll come back on that.
Let me solve all of your holiday shopping problems right now by talking to you about the premium audio products from Raycon. They have wireless earbuds, headphones, and speakers that offer premium sound. I personally adore the wireless earbuds. I've been using them for 4 or 5 years. They got a ton of battery life. We're talking 54 plus hours. It's incredible. And honestly, I have gotten them for gifts for my significant other. I've gotten them for my family and friends, and they all come back to me and they're like, dude, this is incredible. Why have I never used these before? And I'm like, I don't know. That's your fault. That's why I am here to help you. And for the next month, Raycon will have a countdown to Christmas with a new pop-up flash deal for you to take advantage of every single day. Now, what can you do? You can go to buyraycon.com/Ray and get the best deals around. That gets you 15% off site-wide with code HOLIDAY plus free shipping. That is code HOLIDAY at buyraycon.com/Ray for 15% off your Raycon purchase and then free shipping. So again, go to buyraycon.com/Ray, solve all of your shopping problems, and then maybe, toss a pair of headphones there for you. Okay? Maybe just an idea, but thank you, Raycon, and buy them now.
Explore new cultures and experiences with Intrepid Travel. Intrepid specializes in socially conscious travel with over 900 amazing small group adventures to choose from in more than 100 countries. Whether it's the mountaintop vistas of the Andes, the wildlife of Tanzania, or the hidden noodle bars of Vietnam, Intrepid is there. There to get you off the beaten track, behind the scenes, and totally immersed in the joy of travel. Discover more at intrepidtravel.com. Intrepid Travel. Travel is back for good.
On game night, there's only one food delivery service that's a slam dunk, a home run, a hole-in-one, a touchdown. Sorry, I got a bit carried away there. It's Grubhub. For game night eats, late night treats, and sweet and salty faves you crave, lazy lunches, delicious family dinners, and more, it's all about the Grubhub. We all have days when cooking just isn't in the cards. Grubhub is there when you need it most, offering up everything you want from national favorites to the best-kept secret spots in town, ensuring that there's truly something for everyone. Right now, Amazon Prime members get a year of Grubhub Plus for free, so you pay $0 in food delivery fees when you order from your favorite restaurants. Visit goforgrubhub.com/Amazon for details. And of course, with the holidays right around the corner, Grubhub gift cards are the perfect gift for everyone on your list. Who doesn't love the gift of food? Order online at grubhub.com or download the Grubhub app from your app store. Place your order and streamline your order and future food deliveries. That's grubhub.com or the Grubhub app. Go for Grubhub.
Yeah, I'll do my homework.
Sounds good. And then kind of like you mentioned, and you've mentioned in other spaces as well, where you came from a really artistic family and creative family, as far as your mother being a dancer, and your father being a composer, and there was a lot of, from what I could tell, a lot of emphasis placed on the fact that you were allowed to creatively express yourself, but it was through this lens of, okay, like you can do these creative things like, piano and violin and everything, but you need to excel obviously at a high level, which, ties back to the Chinese culture in general.
Yeah.
Was that kind of an interesting sort of push and pull where it's like, cause sometimes the creative side of yourself gets kind of quashed because it's like, just pay attention to school, do one instrument, like that's it. Like, I guess I know it's a complicated question, but like, did you notice that kind of push and pull?
What's frustrating is it's actually kind of like an inside joke in the Asian community is most parents, they'll push piano, violin, some kind of instrument on their kid, and they'll be like really hardcore about it. And like, basically they will force this kid to devote their life to just mastering the piano. And then as soon as the kid is like, I think I want to do this for a living. I think I want to be a musician. Parents are like, no. Like, so it's kind of like you get mixed messages because I know I was pushed to do piano, violin, orchestra, all this stuff when I was little, and I hated it. Like, my parents forced me to do it. I think because it just looks good for college, and also those are instruments that they approved that they think are like, non-heathen instruments. And I think as soon as I developed an actual interest for music, they became concerned because they're like, how are you going to make a living? Like you can't go to college for music. You have to like go to college for something like law or be a doctor or something. And it's kind of frustrating because, you're given this toolkit to be creative, but then they take it away. I had a weird upbringing, I guess, where I was introduced to like all this music stuff. I didn't actually like it, but then I started to like it when I took up guitar for myself. And this was just way in college. It was because nobody was forcing me to do it. It's something I did for myself, and it was like my own voice.
Yeah, no, that really, I definitely can see where you're coming from that perspective. Because, when you're forced in front of an instrument and you kind of just do it habitually, but then you do it because, it is going to make you a well-rounded person, and you're able to use that as pillars of success for future endeavors. You don't have a voice. You don't feel like you're actually expressing yourself, even though it is a creative medium.
Yeah, like I did it. Competition is a thing I'm like really vehemently against when it comes to music. I think it kind of squashes people's enjoyment for it. I think it's just weird to put pressure on someone to like perform a piece of music perfectly or something. I think it should be more about I don't know, just like how, like personal fulfillment. I guess that's at least what I take home from music.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing like classical music where there's certain rules that you have to abide by. Like for instance, performing a Baroque piece, there's like a lot of rules, and I understand how you can like put a quantifier on that or like evaluate it with like rules and stuff. But for other stuff like, I don't know, romantic era music or even just like composition, writing, I think it's hard. There shouldn't really be a competition for it.
And that actually leads me perfectly to a question I was going to ask a little bit later. But the, my notion of the kind of competitive, whatever recitals and concerts, like, I wasn't aware that there was, I guess, a competitive nature to, performing these instruments. Like, yes, I was aware of, your first chair versus third chair and, you're going to have a recital and stuff like that. But, can you kind of like describe to me what the sort of competitive nature of, is it like you'd literally perform a piece in front of judges and then kind of, be graded on that, and then you would be on like some weird leaderboard?
Yeah. So basically everyone will like, usually so how piano competitions work for me, or even violin auditions and stuff, is there's like a list of repertoire that is like competition approved, and you select. There's like themed competitions, like for instance, there's a romantic era competition, and then there's like there's Baroque competition, there's like classical competition, and usually, like let's say everyone plays like romantic era composers, so people can all play Ravel, and you're graded on your musicality, which is I think something pretty subjective. Basically, it's like how touching you can make the piece. You're graded on your accuracy, so if you mess up, then you get dinged there. And then you're graded also on your presentation, so that means how your stage presence is, and even what you wear, which I'm conflicted about, because I don't think you should bring anything aesthetic into music. Well, I mean, into a piano composition. So, for instance, one time I was like neck and neck with this girl when I was little, and then I guess my dress wasn't nice enough or something. It wasn't formal enough, so I got dinged there, so she got a point more than me, and so we went from tying to like that's what broke the tie. So
it sounds like very much like figure skating, where you like clearly you're performing in front of judges and you're graded on these multiple different categories. But I guess I was just ignorant and not knowing at the fact that there was this, really, really competitive. I mean, I know that people are competitive about music, but I just didn't know there was this sort of like judgment angle. And I presume you'd win like trophies and medals and stuff like that.
Yeah, sometimes you win money. Sometimes you win just like just I guess the title. You sometimes win master classes. You win playing, like sometimes if you win a competition, you get your own concert. And you can like perform at like Carnegie Hall or something. It's kind of like almost like hazing or something. Like you get through this and then you get to the next level. Another part of it I really didn't like was I feel like sometimes they'd have a panel of judges, but the judges would choose stuff that it's kind of too subjective. Some judges like certain things more than others. Some judges like certain dresses more than others. So it's like, at the end of the day, you're just at the whim of someone's personal taste.
Right.
And it can get a little weird.
Yeah. No. It's that. It's like I could see the grading of music as far as the performance. Like I get that to a certain extent because anybody that anything that can be deemed as competitive and stacking yourself up against others is going to happen. But a lot of things that what you're talking about definitely are just like, oh, that's kind of it's like this weird, horrible like battle of the band scenario, but it's like on a level that is people are highly invested in it and are making sure that there's money to be made and there's classes to be taken and all this other stuff.
Yeah, I think another part of it I didn't like was it just breeds like an unhealthy culture, I suppose, and a bad mindset. Like people, I think one of my favorite things about playing in a band and like going on tour is you just collaborate with other people and you like learn from them and you're inspired by them and like you see what they're doing and you're like, that's so cool. Like I want to incorporate that into my set. And it's kind of like a really healthy exchange of information. But I feel like, and at least what I experienced in the competitive world is it gets really cutthroat in the classical world. Like people sabotage each other. Like my friend, goes to Juilliard, and she told me a story about this girl. They had a competition together, and the night before, this other girl hunted her down. Like she was like watching her, and she figured out where she was practicing all the time. So the morning before the competition, she knew that she was going to go practice. The other girl was going to go practice. So the other girl, my friend, was going to go practice. So she put raisins in the piano just to like sabotage her and like cut her fingers. So like you get people going to extreme radical lengths to win, and I think that is really unhealthy.
Yeah, that's awful. I mean, basically, most people's experience with getting pushed to the brink. People always reference the movie Whiplash, and it's like that. That like
that's very real.
Yeah, totally.
That's so real. The movie too hard. Like people were like, "This is insane." I'm like, "No, like that's real." Like I've been, for violin, I've been against the wall crying most of my lessons. Like, I've had my hands hit with sticks. I've been beaten and had things thrown at me. It's pretty bad. Like, I wanted to get away from that, so I started playing rock and roll.
Yeah, no, and that it makes total sense where you would kind of shift the other direction to be like, okay, like I like music, but the controlling nature of everything I've been experiencing is not what I want to do.
Yeah, I'm like so radically against it that like as soon as someone starts comparing me to someone else, like I just do everything I can to pivot and not make it about that. Like, people always like to be like, this guitarist is like way more technical than like this person and like they're way better. It's like, can we just not do that? Like I've already done enough of that in childhood. What if we both are good? What if we both are just doing completely separate things and you don't have to compare us and like lump us into the same category? Like people create like pseudo rivalries online sometimes between guitarists. It's like such a weird thing. I like read stuff about like pseudo beef I have with other people. It's like, that's not even real. Like people just imagine it because they're pitting us against each other.
Right. Yeah. It's like people can exist in these mutually exclusive worlds. It's like, you don't have to pick a side. Like you can just simply enjoy one person and not enjoy another one, or enjoy both of them, and you're probably going to be okay.
Yeah, and like it's okay to do different things too. Like, and people, I think some people aren't able to identify like nuanced things. Like they only see technique. They only see someone shredding on like an 8-string or a 9-string. They don't see that one person is going for one style and another person's like more interested in like this other style. Instead, they'll just focus on this like really insignificant detail, like they both play 9-string or something. So yeah, it's like an interesting thing I see. Just competition really turns me off. Like I just want to get away from it.
Yeah,
I'd rather just support. That's like community is really important to me, because then it's all about like sharing ideas and fighting. And that's how I think in art, any scene, a music scene, an art scene, I think it grows when people feel comfortable exchanging ideas and collaborating and working together. I think a way for a scene to die is if everyone's like every man for himself and, constantly trying to like outdo each other. It's weird. That's how something dies, because nobody's talking to each other and nothing new is being made.
Yeah, exactly. There's no collaboration and everyone's in their own silos just worrying about what it is that they do, and that's it. And there's no inspiration that's derived from that.
Yeah. Basically how I like to function is if my friends are doing well, then I'm like super happy for them. Like I want that, because it's like the more we can spread the word about this niche genre, the better,
Yeah, totally. No, it's very true, because people get competitive in these really inconsequential ways of like, oh yeah, we're at the this band that plays to 200 people, like and I play to 150. Like there literally should be no competition, because like it's a different story if Katy Perry and Taylor Swift are feuding because they're not selling out arenas or whatever. It's like, well, that's on a whole different level. That's mainstream music, not this little, corner weird music that we're playing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I think if you're going to play this genre, you have to accept that there's a ceiling for it because, like no one's going to want to hear like Hella on the radio. Like, I think for most people that would just kind of, people would be like, what is this noise? Like, right. Where's the lyrics? Like, so there's a ceiling. So we just have to accept that we're going to be in this niche. I mean, it's not to say that we can't break out of it. And like, that's where I think blending genres and like going out and like exploring different things, I think that's cool. Cause like what I like about, I'm just going a tangent here. What I like about, I listen to a lot of different styles and I like the catchiness of pop music. Like there's a hook and it like gets stuck in your head and it's infectious. And I think there's something brilliant about it. But my gripe with it is that sometimes I think it can be a bit repetitive or like kind of too predictable, Mm-hmm. And so I like to put the catchiness and the catchiness and infectiousness of pop music and combine it with like weird time signatures and then like some goofy, grungy tones of like post metal or something. And like, just, find what you like about different genres and blend it into one. And I think it like you end up making something new, mm-hmm. That many people can appreciate, not just like math rock fans or whatever. Like pop fans can be like, oh, I can dance to this, even if it's in 7.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That you can, expand and hopefully challenge people to listen to music that, doesn't fall into, one or two categories. It kind of like blends this, mishmash of a bunch of different things. That's cool.
Yeah. And one thing that it also, it helps with who you can tour with too. Like if you just have like a very versatile sound, then like you end up opening up your touring opportunities with different people. Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting to like the nerdiness of being in a band.
No.
Like, the last thing anyone wants to do is pigeonhole themselves in like one genre, because then what you experience in that case is that your touring opportunities run out because you're in like this niche thing. But if you like kind of break out and like experiment with different stuff, like you're more versatile and you can chameleon to like different bands and like more people can appreciate what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely. I always find that it's like the bands that if you are like the heaviest band on a bill of bands that are whatever. If you're a hardcore band playing with pop punk bands, you're going to stand out. Like a lot of people are probably not going to enjoy it because it's yelling vocals and there's a lot of stuff that doesn't sync up with the person who's wanting to hear a pop punk band. But the people who you do appeal to are the people who are going to be like, oh my gosh, like that's maybe my first exposure to something even more aggressive than, whatever, Newfound Glory or something like that. And then on the flip side, like, if it's like a metal or a hardcore tour and then like you are the, softer band on the bill, people are immediately going to be like, oh, this doesn't sound like everything else. And they'll, like you said, they'll kind of be like, huh, my curiosity is piqued. What's up with this? I don't know. I've never heard this before or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's fun to like open people's minds up about things and like expose them to new genres. Like I know I used to go to a ton of shows when I was little, and sometimes there'd be like a wacky band, and then I'd be like, "This is so weird. What is this?" And then I'd go do research, and then I'd find other bands of the genre, and then I'd have a new appreciation for a whole new genre.
Explore new cultures and experiences with Intrepid Travel. Intrepid specializes in socially conscious travel with over 900 amazing small group adventures to choose from in more than 100 countries. Whether it's the mountaintop vistas of the Andes, the wildlife of Tanzania, or the hidden noodle bars of Vietnam, Intrepid is there. There to get you off the beaten track, behind the scenes, and totally immersed in the joy of travel. Discover more at intrepidtravel.com. Intrepid Travel. Travel is back for good.
What's the worst thing about sports? Oh. That's right, all those breaks in play. But you can make them all better by using Grubhub. You wouldn't have a movie night without snacks, so why would you settle for a halftime without food? Grubhub has every food you could possibly crave, from national favorites to local spots. Reorder your regulars or find something brand lip-smackingly new. You can search by city, cuisine, restaurant name, or if it's a firm favorite, even by menu item. Delivered on time at the lowest price. Order through the Grubhub app or online at grubhub.com. That's grubhub.com. And of course, don't forget forget, with the holidays right around the corner, Grubhub gift cards are the perfect gift for everyone on your list. Now Amazon Prime members get a year of Grubhub Plus for free. That's $0 food delivery fees from your favorite restaurants. Visit goforgrubhub.com/Amazon for terms and details. Go for Grubhub.
Hey, it's Ray, the host of this very podcast. And let me ask you a question. What if you had insights into your genetics that could help empower you to live healthier? How would you use that knowledge? You can hear me talk about insights from my DNA that have affected my personal health journey on this season of the podcast Spit from iHeartRadio and 23andMe. Host Baratunde Thurston, which, by the way, incredible dude, has a podcast called How to Citizen. I can't highly recommend that any more than I am right now, but listen to that and listen to this podcast. But he explores how more and more people are finding out that DNA is about more than just ancestry. It's a key to understanding your health. Your genetic profile can tell you if you are at an increased likelihood for developing a particular condition. It's knowledge that can help you make smarter choices about your health and your lifestyle. On this season of Spit, you'll hear me and 22 other podcasters and influencers discuss what genetics revealed about our health and how that knowledge can impact the way we live our lives. Listen to my episode out now on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's the fun part of music.
Yeah.
And so kind of, reflecting it back on you where, it seems like, I mean, you mentioned, previously that you were, you're total tomboy, interested in sports and everything like that. But it sounds like your parents did give you a pretty, wide runway to, I guess, kind of experiment with a bunch of stuff. Or is that kind of mischaracterizing your experience? Like, were they like, okay, she can do these other things. Like, yeah, she can, shoot a basketball, but like, we're not going to sign her up for basketball camp or something like that.
I think they signed me up for classical stuff because they wanted to expose me to new things. But it was like, the problem I had with it was I felt like they only wanted to expose me to what they approved of, So a lot of the things I do, I think emerged out of like wanting to rebel a bit. So I think I started going to like rock shows and like I started getting certain hobbies just because I wanted to do something that wasn't so proper, I guess.
Right.
I was brought up to be like conservative, super Christian, super proper. So I got into like flash animating and stuff when I was little. I would do like fight sequences. Got into like basketball. I also didn't have a lot of friends in real life, so I think most of the time growing up, all my friends were people around the world on the internet that I met in chat rooms and stuff. So I would learn a lot about what I wanted to do from them because I'd be like, oh, you skate? That's sick. I want to skate. Or, oh, you hack websites? Like, that's cool. How to you code? That's cool. I want to learn how to do that. So
right.
I think a lot of what I wanted to do was just because a lot of my guy friends at the time were doing it, and I just wanted to fit in and have friends.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. That you were just trying to. It sounds like what you were talking about being really important to you now is the fact that communities and like you do, when you're kind of diving around the internet and you kind of find these weird communities, like that's what's attractive. You're just like, oh, there's this whole thing here. Like I just hadn't experienced before, but there's people that are into it, and it's like you can kind of dive into that and get interested.
Yeah. And what I loved about it was, I grew up kind of like awkward and I was teased a lot in school because I looked like kind of greasy and I was very overweight. So I was kind of bullied at school, but online, nobody saw what I looked like ever. They just saw my personality. So, and my sense of humor at the time.
Right.
And I really value having a sense of humor because that's how I made most of my friends when I was little. When I was younger, I think it still helps me make friends, but like, I like that people saw that and they wanted to be my friend online. There's like something cool and beautiful about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you could kind of experiment with different personas in a non-confrontational manner and be kind of like, oh, so yeah, my humor is what seems to attract people, or like, oh, my intelligence or whatever, you could kind of see what works.
Yeah, in some ways, those friendships feel really real to me because it's like not based on something superficial. It's based on like just genuinely enjoying each other's company. So that's what I liked about all my friends and like the communities I was a part of when I was younger.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so when did, like you mentioned, you started, exploring the idea of, rock music and, being drawn away from the classical stuff. But I mean, it sounds like you were going to kind of, DIY sort of independent, music leaning shows. When did that kind of start to filter in your head as far as that was concerned? Was it high school, I presume?
Yeah. So my friend was really into music too, but we kind of I first started going to shows because she really liked, more, what's the sound of like MySpace bands, like All Time Low.
Yeah, of course. Pop punk, I would call them. Yeah.
Yeah, pop punk, but like it's like this weird scene that emerged in the mid 2000s where it's like Never Shout Never, All Time Low, Hit the Lights.
Of course, Somerset. Yes, right.
The Somerset, I love them. I still love them. Okay,
yeah.
Sorry, I haven't heard that name forever. I got excited. Yeah, I know all their lyrics. So I really she liked those bands, and I started liking some of them too, like the Somerset. But like she'd take me to shows all the time, and I'd ask my dad to drive us because I couldn't drive yet, and as when I was a freshman, and we'd go. And then I started looking up different shows that I wanted to go to, and I started going alone without people. And there's a local scene too, so I would go to there used to be a venue in Los Gatos. It was kind of like a teen rec center / gallery / just like house. It was called The Refuge. I used to go there all the time and see bands. And I'd go for one band and end up liking all the other bands in Bill too. So I kind of just started experimenting with going to shows on my own. And then, I started on MySpace. I did graphic design for a lot of people too. So MySpace was such a valuable tool for me to find the bands that I love. Like I discovered Copeland, May, Deus Vale, what's another band? Ted Leo and the Pharmacists. Like a lot of bands had MySpace profiles, and I would just click around, and that's how I started developing my musical tastes at the time. And yeah, I guess you connected with other people in MySpace who like those bands too. Yeah, I kind of missed those days. It was great. MySpace was great.
Yeah, no, it's cool because that definitely was a time and a place. Like there were so many bands, especially from Northern California that were just like, no one would ever know about these bands. Like now, whatever, a band like Arsonists Get All the Girls, or like, I'm trying to think of some other bands like from up there. There's like, I Set My Friends on Fire. Like, they were obviously more aggressive than the bands that you were mentioning, but like, that was a very specific, like you said, they were MySpace bands, and they, got signed off of the strength of, their online profiles and stuff. It was the first time that, the music industries had to reckon with the idea of like, oh, I guess there's this online thing that's happening with bands, and we need to pay attention to it.
Yeah. And it was just the way it was set up was really, really cool too. Like it was very customizable, and like it was easy to like network and meet people too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I basically started getting my taste from going to shows and going on MySpace. And then I started making music of my own, and I had a MySpace artist profile for a while. I deleted it. It's embarrassing.
No, that's well. You gotta do it just to see what it's like, and then you're like, okay, maybe I'll do it a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had Pure Volume.
Oh yeah, of course, Pure Volume was a huge thing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's funny.
Yeah, I think I got a lot of my style at the time from MySpace too, but I didn't go full scene queen. I kind of
sure.
I was like the diet scene. Because my mom didn't let me dye my hair.
Of course, right. That was like, oh man, I wish I could do this crazy purple streak, but can't do that.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad she didn't let me black out my eyes with eyeliner too.
Sure.
Or like, I had a period of time where I wanted to stretch my ears.
Of course.
Like a lot. And
yep.
I'm so glad. My mom was like, no.
Yes, or get the the double lip piercings and those things where it's like, oh, that just doesn't age well.
Yeah, like, look, if my parents weren't there to control me, I would have like probably 90% of my face pierced.
Right. Yeah, parents are good. Parents are good for some things, and kind of shifting gears to something more serious, where you were, you have openly spoken about, your eating disorder and, kind of how music was really the focal point that you use to, help yourself, as well as like obviously going to therapy and all that sort of stuff. But how did the eating disorder manifest itself? Were you actually like classified like bulimic, or like what sort of, clinical description was put on you, or was it just kind of a generalized sort of eating disorder?
I can give you the long version and the short version. I'll give you the short version for the sake of just tedious, grim details.
No problem.
I was anorexic. I started out with, I didn't know what I had. All I know is that one day, after a really bad family domestic violence thing, I just lost my appetite, and I just didn't want to eat anymore. And I couldn't bring myself to eat, and I didn't even know about calories or anything. For me, it just was like a feeling inside of me where it's like, man, I just don't want, I'm so upset and mad, I don't want to feed myself. And then I started learning about, this is where community can be a bad thing, is that there's people online who like are obsessed with exercising, dieting, and calories and stuff. And I started reading about it, Googling things, and I started learning about calories and portion control and like counting things. And I became obsessed with numbers, and I started like, there's a way to quantify how little I could eat every day. And I became fixated on how little I could put into my body. And couple that with, I had OCD at the time. So I was like a compulsive exerciser. I would go and run 15 miles every day. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. and I'd run until like 6 a.m. and then I'd go to class. So
got it. It was like, really unhealthy. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, and I appreciate you sharing that, because I think that is something that, people, especially as personal metrics and data become so intertwined with most people's lives, as far as like, oh, I got to get my 10,000 steps a day or whatever. And then, yeah, if you start to scratch that itch, like there's no end to it of like how the measurements can show you what you are doing in excess and how you should try to eliminate that. And like you said, if you're like, all right, I can eat 300 calories a day and like survive, then it just, you just end up in a black hole.
Yeah. And people teach each other tricks online to like fool people into thinking you're normal and stuff. It's a pretty scary place. I think like if I was a mom and I knew all that information was online and I saw my teen daughter not eating, I would be like, get off the internet. Because like there's a lot of tricks people tell you to like, it's like a weird community, and it's also cool because it's support communities for people who want to recover. My whole thing was I was 180 pounds in middle school, and in 1 year I lost to 80 pounds, which put me in the hospital, because if you don't eat, your body starts, when you run out of fat, your body starts cannibalizing your muscle and your brain. So one thing that happened was my memory got really awful because my body started cannibalizing my brain, which is mostly fat. And then my heart stopped working and I would be cold all the time. So I got hospitalized, not because I lost weight, but because my heart actually wasn't working anymore. So I had to be put on a heart machine, and I had like EKGs done every day. And I was put on a drip to give me nutrition. And yeah, it was a really hard process because like so I'm like getting into the nitty gritty of what eating disorders are, but part of the treatment is like, you not only have to be like gain the weight back, but you have to work on your eating habits too. And you have to get rid of the fear of eating. Like for me, when someone upset me and I had a bad day, like it's exactly like an addiction. Like think about an eating disorder like a cigarette. It's your cigarette. So like, let's say I try to go my whole day without a cigarette and someone pisses me off, or I have like a stressful thing coming up. I'm going to think immediately like, fuck, I need my cigarette. So for me, it was like, I would try to eat and I would be like, all right, I'm going to try to eat a full sandwich today. and not feel shitty about it. But then something bad would happen and I'd be like, oh, screw it. I'm not going to eat the sandwich and I'm going to go run 10 miles. So
right.
It's kind of like an impulse. It's really weird.
Yeah.
So they put me on, had me live in the hospital for like basically a month on and off for like 4 years. Because part of the thing is making you realize that if you eat 3 meals a day, your world's not going to end and you're not going to become obese. Because in my head, I was like, if I eat, I'm going to become lazy and I'm just going to become obese again. So there's like, part of that was getting rid of that irrational fear. Also giving you the tools to know how to take care of yourself, and also treating you psychologically. Like, you need a therapist, because eating disorders most of the times they don't come from like people who just want to look skinny or whatever. Most of the time it's like a more deep-seated problem with control, and usually people with toxic family dynamics usually fall prey to them too, and perfectionist sensitive people as well. So I was like the perfect candidate to get a disorder.
Right. Yeah. Well,
all that. Being in the hospital is good, but I started learning guitar when I was there, and I started drawing more, and I think that's what rescued me at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, that's incredible, because you could obviously occupy your mind in a positive outlet in ways that, other people can focus on things that, could make them, relapse or go back into the behavior that got them there in the first place. And so it was great that you had that outlet.
Yeah, it's like important, because it takes the focus off of superficial things and it makes it more about what you can control and like building skills and building confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of on that same tip, it was, like I said, I, discovered, Covet via Wanderer, and, was aware of the band and everything like that. But then, to be completely honest, I had no idea, that, the online following that you had in regards to, people being, obsessed with your guitar work and, your large social media followings. For a person that, is clearly, okay, sharing a lot about themselves and about their life. But then, there's clearly a impact that happens, as people, start to want something from you and start to have this sort of transactional relationship with you. How have you kind of navigated that, as, clearly people are paying attention to, what it is you're doing artistically?
I'm sorry, what, when you say navigate that, what is that? I just want to make sure I answer it.
No, it's fine. I just navigate that, where the emotional drain and the kind of, the fact that people, expect certain things from you, or it's just like, oh, she hasn't posted something, I need my content or whatever. Like, that sort of, like I said, that transactional relationship that people start to, develop with you, looking at you as a content creator as opposed to a human or whatever,
So that's a real struggle. Like, I know so many people who have that same anxiety. I'd say that I've become a far more anxious person and I've become way more reclusive, I think, with time. Like, when I first started out, I replied to every comment, I replied to every message, I gave a thank you every single person who sent me something nice. And, deep down, I want to do that. I want to be available and accessible to people. I want them to know that they have a friend in me. And I want them to know that, like, I'm not, like, too cool for them or whatever. Sometimes I'm quite lonely and I want to, like, meet people. But it gets hairy, because sometimes people get creepy, people get obsessive, and people get demanding and they start feeling entitled. One thing I've noticed, I think how I've stayed sane is I still, no matter what I do, I told myself when I started this that, like, if I make art and music, I'm going to do it for myself. And I'm not going to curate what I do to what people want me to do, because then it dilutes your artistic vision to a point where one day you're going to wake up and you're going to be like, I don't even like what I'm making. I'm literally just a slave to content, like making content that people will readily consume. I could go down a wormhole here and talk about how I think sometimes our pop culture is problematic, because I feel like people are being fed what they should consume instead of having, like, actually getting to form their taste. in the first place, but I'm not going to go down that wormhole.
Yeah, I think we could probably do a whole separate episode on just that particular topic, because there's definitely, algorithms are great, but human interaction and self-discovery is also an incredibly important part of people's well-being.
Yeah, I think our culture doesn't encourage people to think for themselves sometimes, and that's a little scary. Anyway, so basically I navigate that by just making art for myself. If I write a song, if I like it, then that's all I care about. If someone else doesn't like it, that's fine. Like, they don't have to listen to it. But I find that so far, when I make something that I'm genuinely invested in and enthusiastic about, people can see that it's genuine, and it goes a long way. I think making art for yourself that is genuine, people aren't dumb. Like, they can tell when you're doing something for reasons, so when you're not into what you're doing, so I think one way to survive is that, like, I take people's opinions into consideration and stuff, but at the end of the day, like, I'm my boss, and what I want goes.
Yeah.
I have this.
And to kind of put a point on that too. You are, how old are you currently?
I'm 26.
Okay. And, you're a little bit better versed to, do things of this nature, like, be, more comfortable in your own skin as you get older, like if you were doing this when you were, 16 years old, I imagine you would not have even been able to, function as a human being, because you would be lost in this, everything that you're going through personally, but then everything you're trying to achieve artistically as well. So age definitely has something to do with it as well.
Oh, for real. Like, one thing I've learned, actually, I never used to be assertive, and I used to be quite self-conscious and scared and anxious. And I think, like, being thrust into this thing that I didn't even know I was going to do. Like, I went to art school. I thought I was going to just work as an art teacher, but this kind of, like, this lifestyle took over, and I didn't even know. I didn't even want it, really. Like, it just happened. It fell into my hands. I am so lucky and privileged, and I won't ever want to take that for granted. Going back to the point of young people falling into this lifestyle as well, I feel sorry, because it's a very high pressure environment. It's similar to, like, actually a competition environment where everyone wants something from you, and you're like, if you're someone who likes pleasing people, it's really hard to navigate. It's really scary. At first, I think I tried to, like, do what people wanted, but then I kept on reading things like, like, oh, you need vocals, or like, oh, don't sing, I hate your voice, you sound like a Disney princess. Like, people want different things, and they're going to pull you in a million directions. Not to mention, when you start working with, like, management and, like, agencies and stuff, they'll pull you in even more directions, and they'll want you to do what makes them the most money. So at the end of the day, the one thing that'll keep you grounded and keep you rooted in your own vision is to just tune it out. Of course, it's, like, not without compromise. Sometimes that's something that I'm working on, is, like, knowing when to compromise and when to not. But I think I just don't want what I'm doing to be diluted by what other people want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. That's a very good North Star to focus on as you pursue all your endeavors. I'm not. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, I was saying I haven't got it figured out as well. Like, I think I'm just trying to figure out how to survive, and so far, just, like, doing it for me is what's keeping me mentally healthy.
Sure, that's good. Two last things I want to hit on before I let you go was the you have toured a limited amount, and so, or correct me if I'm wrong, like, you haven't done extensive touring across the U.S. right now, right?
I mean, we've done, like, let's see, we did Tides of Man full U.S.
Okay.
Polyphia Chon full U.S. Little Tybee, another Chon Little Tybee full U.S. Jason Richardson, that was full U.S. as well.
Yeah. So
I think we've done a few.
You can call me wrong. That's fine. Anyways.
No, I was just making sure that I actually, like, did a lot. Like,
no, that's fine. I was making sweeping assumptions, but but the point being, like, do you was tour and is tour something that you thought it was kind of cracked up to be? Do you enjoy it? Do you enjoy certain aspects of it and dislike other things? Where does touring kind of sit in your head?
I love touring. I love going to new places, meeting people. Touring warms my heart. Touring, like, it's such a weird combination of emotions because on one hand, you're stuck in a vehicle with the same people for a month, and you can be the bestest of friends, but ultimately sometimes you're going to butt heads. And I think tour is what makes or breaks bands sometimes because some people just can't handle that lifestyle of driving 16 hours on 2 hours of sleep, not eating well, high pressure environment. And you have to communicate with each other and be comfortable with each other to survive. So I think tour is warm my heart because I realize I have a family in my band. I love them all a lot. And we work really well as a team and we communicate really well. So I think it's taught me a lot of leadership skills as well and communication skills. On the other hand, also, it's warmed my heart because complete strangers will let you stay at their house. They don't know who we are. We have every reason to be psychopaths or killers or just rob them or something. But they just trust us, complete strangers. And some people were so hospitable. Like we had a guy wake up at 6 a.m. when we were still asleep to go pay our parking meter, without telling us. Just so thoughtful. You just meet so many beautiful, interesting, diverse people with good hearts. And it kind of makes me want to do the same thing when I'm older. Like I want to move out and I want to have a space of my own so I can pay it forward to all the people who've done that for me. And I guess the ugly side of it would be just, sometimes you get into fights with people. It's freaking exhausting. People think it's like, oh, you go on tour, you must be like doing blow every night and like partying and drink. Like I don't drink or do any drugs or anything. So like my life on tour is just play a show, go find food, get to know some people, and then we just sleep and drive. You don't even really have time to sightsee sometimes because you just load in at 3 and you have to drive 14 hours overnight. So you better make it by 3 and make sound checks. And before you know it, it's already like 1 a.m. and you're tired.
Yeah, totally. It's like, oh, wow. Yeah, touring is definitely just one of those things where it's an alternate state of reality, and you get to experience like the high highs of emotions, and you get to experience the low lows of emotions, just because you're in this really, fragile state, like because you're in this constant atmosphere of change, and nothing is this. The only thing that's the same is like piling in a van and waiting forever to play for 40 minutes on stage, but like everything else changes, and it's a juxtaposition of all these emotions.
Yeah. When you're first starting out, one of the most demoralizing things is driving 16 hours to go play a show. You're tired, you haven't eaten, and then like the show is just crap. Like the sound is bad or something. It's like, man, like we did all this work and then like I don't know, everything went to shit. So sometimes you have to deal with that frustration, but not like. One thing I've worked on is letting go of my perfectionist tendencies and not letting one bad show like destroy me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, you're definitely setting yourself up for emotional trauma moving forward.
Sometimes things are wrong that are not in your control, like bad sound, or like maybe just like, the local band plays really, really, really long and then you only get like a 15-minute set or something. So stuff like that happens all the time.
Yeah, for sure. You're like, hey guys, we're the ones on tour, right? Like we're 3,000 miles away from our place. Like, can we play like half an hour? Maybe.
Yeah. Courtesy is a thing that's learned, I think, with experience. Like we pulled that shit too. Like something as simple as when you're packing up, don't pack up on stage. Bring your stuff off stage and pack up so that the band can load. And stuff like that. Stuff you learn.
Yeah. And the last thing I want to hit on was the fact that, you have to be involved with the business aspects of what you're doing, not only from your, guitar playing and endorsements, and then, clearly the decisions that are made with the band, and then, clearly the decisions you make as far as the, artwork you do and the pieces that you commission. Do you like the aspect of doing business with the stuff that is your creative endeavor, or is that just kind of a sort of a necessary evil to you?
So I'm not naturally inclined as a businesswoman. I think I'm an artist at heart, so I'll happily just give people things for free. I love making people happy. And, I'm hyper empathetic. So I'm like, oh, you can't afford paying us this for a show, that's okay. We'll take like a $10 guarantee, So that's where I think having management is really good, because my management knows that I'm especially, I guess, easily guilted and like very nice. So I don't like handling stuff like, no, we need $500 for this show. Like, I don't like chasing people for money. And also I like to just focus on making my art, and I don't like to contaminate it with having to negotiate money or even like having to decline things, because I don't like saying no either. I will say having my bass player David is a really great resource in my band, because he studied business and like he handles money stuff. So we kind of work as like an organism where I do most of the creative stuff, like the visual art portion, and I write the music, and then he handles all the business stuff and like all the networking. So I think if you have a band, it's great if you combine your skill sets.
It's a very good point. I mean, yeah, people like to think that they have every single thing buttoned up in their lives, whether it's like, oh yeah, I know how to handle this thing and this thing and this thing. But then you meet other people and you're like, oh, no, you're a lot better at that. So can you do that? Like, and yeah, you kind of, balance each other out and hopefully succeed more because you're not trying to do something that you're terrible at.
Yeah, one thing I think will really strengthen our band's bond was identifying our weaknesses and strengths. Like, I hate emailing, I hate shipping stuff, I hate business, I hate talking money. I just like writing music and making art. So I focus on that. And I'm good at social media, even though sometimes I think it's a chore and it freaks me out. And I think it's a double-edged sword. But I'm good at social media at the end of the day. So I handle that. David handles business and marketing stuff and shipping and like doing all the nitty-gritty little just busy work things. And then Forrest, my drummer, he's also good at social media. And we all talk about it though. It's not like we don't tell each other what's going on. We communicate, but we identify our individual strengths and we delegate our roles based off of those.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. That's perfect. Well, Yvette, thank you so much. This was really fun for me, and I appreciate the time on this one.
Yeah, I really appreciate it too. Sorry if I talk a lot. I'm just really passionate about a lot of the stuff you asked me. It's a really good question.
Well, thank you. You don't. If you are apologizing for talking a lot, then I'm doing the podcast game wrong. So you handled it. You handled it perfectly.
Thank you for listening, right? I appreciate you, the listener. I appreciate Yvette for coming on the show. I appreciate Monica, her PR person, for hooking this interview up. And I just really appreciate all of you, okay? Build those communities with others. That's really, really, really important, okay? What do I have next week? Oh, man, I got a nerdy episode for you. It is with Josh Robbins from a band called Late Bloomer, who's releasing a record on 6131 Records very soon. And we talk about late 90s, well, actually mid to late 90s, early 2000s metalcore. Man, this was a fun one. We actually picked 4 records apiece and we talked about them, why they're underrated, why they need to be re-listened to and reconciled in your own head or find out about in the first place. So it's so much fun, okay? Please tune in and you will nerd out greatly about it, okay? If you're into that stuff. And if you're not, then I still think you'd be into it. So anyways, that's what's happening. And until next week, please be safe, everybody.
You've been listening to the Jabberjaw Podcast Network, jabberjawmedia.com. Shh.
Explore new cultures and experiences with Intrepid Travel. Intrepid specializes in socially conscious travel with over 900 amazing small group adventures to choose from in more than 100 countries. Whether it's the mountaintop vistas of the Andes, the wildlife of Tanzania, or the hidden noodle bars of Vietnam, Intrepid is there. There to get you off the beaten track, behind the scenes, and totally immersed in the joy of travel. Discover more at intrepidtravel.com. Intrepid Travel. Travel is back for good.
People who don't know Bruce have to understand 2 things. One is he's built like something Michelangelo has carved out of a piece of marble.
True, this is true.
And number 2, he's the first person to show you that at every party, at every dinner.
Maybe take a shirt off.
I'm Bruce Bozzi. That was George and Julia. You may not know me yet, but you already know most of my lunch dates by their first names and voices alone. Listen to Table for Two on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Happy Holidays, my podcast on iHeart has brought me together with friends both old and new. Want to know how fashion designer Michael Kors built his iconic American brand? Aren't you curious how rapper Snoop Dogg and I really became good friends? Catch up on the Martha Stewart podcast this holiday season on the iHeart Radio app or wherever you get your podcasts.